Aetherdrift is here, and whether you plan to play in a pre-release or draft event, you're going to need to understand Aetherdrift Limited. From the best archetypes to the best cards in every color, this video will cover everything you need to know to succeed at your next Aetherdrift pre-release or draft event. In a pre-release event, you will be given 6 booster packs to open and build a 40-card deck from. Basic lands will be provided, but the rest of the cards are limited to those opened in your card pool. This is known as a sealed event, and many game stores hold additional sealed events after pre-release. If you or a friend are brand new to sealed events, you can check out my new player's guide to sealed and pre-release events here and linked in this video's description. In a draft, you are given 3 booster packs, which you will open one at a time, select 1 card from your pack, and then pass to the player sitting next to you for them to do the same. In so doing, you will draft a limited card pool to build your 40-card deck from. And as with sealed, if you or a friend are new to draft, I have a new player's guide linked in this video description, which covers all the basics and fundamentals that you need to know. This video will assume you know those basics and will focus instead on the specifics of Aetherdrift. While there are some differences between an Aetherdrift sealed event, like a pre-release, and an Aetherdrift draft, this video is designed to help you with either style of event. But hopefully, whether it is draft or sealed, you'll be playing Aetherdrift at your local game store. However, if you do not have a local game store, or if they simply do not have what you are looking for, and you want to peruse cool deals on everything from Magic the Gathering products to accessories, be sure to visit Card Kingdom via our affiliate link at www.cardkingdom.com/TCC. I have a landing page there that houses some of my favorite products and accessories, but you can also go from here to browse Card Kingdom's wide library of Magic cards and products. Whether it's cards from the newest set or some really cool deals on vintage Magic, be sure to browse through Card Kingdom's catalog, and when you do, to do so via my affiliate link. And of course, always shop at your local game store first, but if you are going to have to shop online, check out www.cardkingdom.com/TCC. You will still be supporting a great part of this Magic community and helping the channel out when you do. And now, are you ready to start your engines for Aetherdrift pre-release and draft? Let's-a go! Let's-a go! Blue shell! 'Cause Mario Kart. Mechanics. First things first, let's talk about the mechanics of Aetherdrift. We've got a couple brand new mechanics for you, along with some returning favorites. As always, it's important to know what mechanics you'll encounter before your event so that you can spend less time trying to understand what a card you open does and more time deciding if it's the right card for your deck. Vehicles and mounts. Both mounts and vehicles return in Aetherdrift, together in the same limited environment for the first time ever. These card types effectively give your creatures a kind of haste, since they'll have something they can do the moment they enter play. The lower the power needed to crew or saddle a vehicle or mount, the better, since that means they're easier or less costly to use. You need to have a high density of creatures to crew vehicles, upwards of 16 or so. Cards that create pilot tokens count towards this total. It's less important to have creatures that can saddle your mounts, since mounts still have utility as attackers and blockers, even when not saddled. But all mounts do get better the more you're able to saddle them. Gloryheath Lynx, for example, is still a great card even if it's not saddled, since a 2-mana 2/3 with lifelink is an awesome body in limited. Start your engines. Start Your Engines is a new mechanic in Aetherdrift. When a permanent with this ability enters play, your speed starts at 1 if you don't already have a speed. It can increase once on each of your turns when an opponent loses life. Max speed is 4, and most Start Your Engines cards have a powerful payoff for reaching max speed. The soonest you can reach max speed in Aetherdrift Limited is turn 4, since there are no ways to both start your engines and deal your opponent damage on turn 1. This is an inherently slow mechanic that requires you to have reliable methods for dealing consistent damage, such as direct damage or evasive creatures. Engines cards get better the more of them you have, since you'll be more likely to start your engines sooner, which means you'll be more likely to reach max speed sooner. And engines cards are often really busted when they enter play already at max speed. Exhaust. Exhaust is a kind of activated ability that can only be used once in a game. Exhaust abilities only exist within teamer colors. There's some internal tension with exhaust cards in that they need spare mana to activate their abilities, but they only serve as a mana sink one time. Still, exhaust cards tend to be pretty powerful and are often decent bodies even before you exhaust them. Cycling. Cycling is back just in time for the motorcycle set. Do you get it? Cycling? Motorcycles? In Magic the Gathering. Cycling is actually a great mechanic that's just as useful for its flexibility in Aetherdrift as it was in all prior cycling sets. It's a very strong backup mode to be able to cycle away a card for a fresh one when you're in a spot that doesn't call for the card. Aetherdrift has a lot of cards that do an additional thing when they cycle. Treat these like modal spells, where one mode of the card is whatever the primary text on the card says, and the other mode is an uncounterable instant that does a thing and draws you a card. There are also several cards that say, when you discard a card, do X. These cards all trigger off of cycling. Affinity. Affinity is a returning cost reduction mechanic in Aetherdrift, but there's not really a huge emphasis on affinity in this set. Think of it more as an incidental bonus on a card, rather than something you want to contort your deck to maximize. Archetypes. Now that we've got a handle on the mechanics of the set, let's talk about the archetypes that you may want to build. For the most part, this is an incredibly synergistic set, which means you'll do better in your draft or pre-release if you know what kind of deck you should be building toward when you find yourself in a color pair. The red-black deck is Engine's Aggro, an aggressive deck that aims to reach max speed as quickly as possible. Its pair of Signpost Uncommons, Apocalypse Runner, and Gastel Thrillseeker both serve this purpose well. Gastel Thrillseeker jumpstarts your engines early in the game, since its Enter the Battlefield ping trigger automatically puts you at a speed of 2 on entry. Apocalypse Runner gives evasion to your smaller creatures, while also providing a life total buffer thanks to lifelink. It can also punch your opponent for 6 if you have a spare 3 power creature to crew it. Remember, the more max speed cards you draft, the better each one becomes. This is a high synergy aggro deck. Gastel Thrillseeker is a card you want as many copies of as you can get. The best max speed payoffs in this deck are both uncommons. Endrider Spikespitter, a powerful card advantage spell on a chunky body, and Risen Necro Regent, an overwhelming token generator on an even chunkier body. Streaking Oil Gorger is also an excellent top-end threat for this deck at common. In red and green, you'll want to build an Exhaust mid-range deck, which is a value deck built to maximize the Exhaust mechanic. The Signpost Uncommons are Rocketeer Boost Buggy, a treasure-generating vehicle that can be exhausted into a permanent artifact creature with a stat buff, and Boom Scholar, a 3/3 for 3 that both makes other exhaust abilities cheaper and helps break board stalls in the late game with its own exhaust ability. There are some nice payoffs for exhaust effects in Gruul colors, such as Elvish Refueler, which allows you to get additional uses out of your exhausted creatures, and Pit Automation, which can copy one exhaust ability each turn. For the most part, though, this is a low synergy mid-range deck. You want to draft powerful cards on rate with a fairly traditional mix of big threats, interaction, and card advantage. Think of exhaust as a way to turn the corner once you've started to pull ahead with your individually powerful cards. The green-white deck is Pilot Midrange, and as the name implies, this is a mid-range deck, though this one is built around mounts and vehicles rather than exhaust abilities. The Signpost Uncommons are both very powerful. Legoran, Soul of Alakria, is a 2-mana flyer that's both easy to crew and quickly starts growing your mounts and vehicles once you start saddling it. Note that those mounts and vehicles don't need to be crewed or saddled themselves in order to receive the counters. Veteran Beast Strider is a 3-mana creature with excellent stats and a nice pump ability for a mana sink. The Beast Rider also untaps both the creatures that crewed and saddled, as well as the vehicles and mounts that they crewed or saddled, meaning you can use them on defense as well as offense. Mounts are a little stronger in this deck than vehicles, since they can still attack and block when they're not saddled, and can be used to crew vehicles or saddle other mounts. You should try to draft at least 16 creatures or other means of crewing vehicles, such as Alacrian Armory or Guide Light Matrix if you're drafting Selesnya. The Azurius deck is an artifact control deck we like to call Artifact Value. The Signpost Uncommons are Guidelight Pathmaker, an expensive vehicle that tutors for another artifact when it enters, putting the tutored artifact directly into play if it's small, and Voyage Home, an incredibly powerful card for refueling, as the combined life buffer and card advantage will pull you extremely far ahead, especially if you cast the spell for just 2 mana. To maximize the efficacy of Voyage Home, you'll want to draft lots of 1-for-1 interaction. Cards like Spectral Interference, Ride's End, and Gallant Strike are excellent in this deck, as are interaction cards such as Trip Up, Roadside Blowout, and Flood the Engine. Artifact Bleeder, the other artifact-heavy deck in this set, is in blue-black. This blue-black deck is also a controlling deck, but with a direct damage component that Dimir decks don't often have. The Signpost Uncommons are Haunted Hellride and Haunt the Network. Hellride is a vehicle that makes your attackers more potent while untapping them, so that they can play defense too. Haunt the Network is an awesome finisher spell that stacks with itself extremely well. I would be happy running as many as 4 or 5 copies of this card in my blue-black decks, though you're unlikely to see more than 2 or so in a draft. Grim Bauble is a linchpin common in this deck, as it both mitigates your opponent's aggression and provides an artifact in play both for Haunt the Network and any affinity cards you have in play. It can also be cashed in for a bit of card selection in a pinch. The black-green deck, Graveyard Recursion, is a grindy graveyard deck with an emphasis on reanimation. It has 2 powerful Signpost Uncommons. Broodheart Engine is a great passive card selection spell that slowly fills your graveyard and can eventually be cashed in to reanimate a creature or vehicle. As for what it should reanimate, well, how about the other Signpost Uncommon? Thundering Broodwagon is a huge beater that destroys a mid to small sized permanent when it enters play. Hellish Sideswipe is one of this deck's best removal spells, since Golgari is the deck most likely to have a vehicle you want to sacrifice to the Sideswipe. A pair of Carrion Cruisers give you a ton of recursive value, as you can use one to pick up the other, then sacrifice the first cruiser to get back later with the second. Deathless Pilot is another great grindy card that can chump block in perpetuity if you have the mana to keep bringing it back to your hand. Green-blue is an exhaust ramp deck and features a fantastic Signpost Uncommon in the form of Sky Serpent Seeker. Sky Serpent Seeker is an uncommon that provides a ton of ramp with its 4-mana exhaust ability and then trades off with virtually any creature in combat thanks to flying and death touch. Another green-blue signpost is Ranger's Aetherhive, an easily crewable vehicle that gives you a bonus Thopter each time you activate an exhaust ability. Sabotage Strategist is a phenomenal endgame threat in any blue deck, but it's especially great in Simic, where your lackluster removal means the mass shrink effect for your opponent's team is particularly important, and where you'll regularly have the mana to activate its powerful exhaust ability. This is also a deck that loves Migrating Ketradon for its life total buffer and big reaching body. Honey Mammoth and Ravenous Lindworm were excellent commons in both Ikoria and Kaldheim draft, and Migrating Ketradon is a strict upgrade on this type of card. Usually, blue and red are what is referred to as Is It, but in Aetherdrift, blue and red might as well be called Is Not, because it's not a spells deck this time around. Instead, blue and red creates an aggressive Discard Matters deck. The Signpost Uncommons are both great. Boosted Sloop is more than just a funny name. It's a well-statted and easy-to-crew vehicle that loots through your deck to find your best cards. Broadside Barrage is a phenomenal removal spell that also loots on resolution. Marauding Mako and Scrounging Skyray are the 2 preeminent threats in this deck at uncommon, though the Skyray is particularly great in limited. These creatures get bigger each time you discard cards and for each card discarded, so it will not be hard to make them very big very quickly. Make sure when piloting this deck that you start holding spare lands once you have 5 or 6 in play, so that you regularly have something useless to discard to your loot effects. Neither Signpost Uncommon's loot ability is a May ability. The red-white deck is a pilot aggro deck. Like Selesnya, this is a deck built around mounts and vehicles, but with the goal of ending the game much quicker than Selesnya is capable of. Its 2 Signpost Uncommons are indicative of that. Cloud Spire Coordinator is a powerful token generator that also helps smooth out your draw with its Enter the Battlefield effect, while Cloudspire's Skycycle is a vehicle with both the modest stat line and the ability to provide an immediate buff to your team's power and toughness when it enters play. There are 17 mounts and vehicles in red-white colors at low rarities. They won't be hard to come by in your draft, but drafting the right mix of them and their pilots will be a challenge. Just as with green and white, there are a number of ways to artificially crew or saddle your vehicles and mounts. All the same ones apply here, with the added benefit that Cloudspire Coordinator keeps a steady flow of pilots generated for each vehicle as long as it sticks in play. Interface Ace is a great common, crewing or saddling twice per turn with its 4 toughness butt. Last but not least, we have Engine's Midrange, the black-white max speed attrition deck. The signpost uncommons are Embalmed Ascendant, which gives you 2 bodies for a single card and turns into a Blood Artist variant once you reach max speed, and Dune Drifter, a vehicle strapped to a reanimation spell. This deck will take longer to reach max speed than the Rakdos deck does, since it has fewer sources of consistent damage in the early turns. Your best source of consistent damage is with cheap evasive creatures like Wreckage Wickerfolk or a saddled Brightfield Glider. The issue I have with this deck is that the cards that help you reach max speed are often not the cards that help you prolong the game the way the Orzhov deck seems to want to. I would recommend avoiding this archetype in your first couple Aetherdrift drafts. I would also recommend avoiding saying Aetherdrift drafts 3 times fast. Aetherdrift draft, Aetherdrift draft, Aetherdrift draft. Bombs. Opening a bomb, rare or mythic, is one of the most fun parts of Limited. It's so exciting to open a pack and see an exceptionally powerful card in that pack, which gives you a direction right away to start drafting or building your deck. But how do you know whether the rare you opened is indeed a bomb or just a dud? Well, in this section, I'm going to talk about some key bombs in each color and some strategies to keep in mind when drafting and building after first picking a particular card. One of the best cards in blue for Limited is the Desparked Mu Yanling, a 4-mana 2/4 that creates a 3/2 vehicle with crew 1 upon entry. She grants all your vehicles flying and draws you a card whenever one or more creatures with flying deal combat damage to your opponent. The vehicle she creates is a genuine threat even if your opponent removes her from the field, and if you draw even 1 card off of her combat trigger, you'll have a certified 3-for-1. I also suspect that River Churn Monument will be a fantastic win condition in blue control decks. Late in the game, this card's exhaustibility could one-shot them out of nowhere. You'll want to pair this card with plenty of removal to prolong the game and get your opponent enough cards in their graveyard to mill them out. One of the best bombs in black is Cryptcaller Chariot, a 4-mana 5/5 vehicle with Menace and Crew 2. The main utility of this card is a payoff for discarding cards, as every card you discard with this in play creates a tapped 2/2 zombie token. With so much cycling in the set, it'll be very easy to trigger the Chariot multiple times. Chariot's at its best in decks within the Grixis Shard, since both blue and red have a lot of discard outlets intended for the Izzet discard aggro deck. Another bomb is Gaunty Knight Minister, an excellent source of card advantage, providing you with cards from your opponent's deck every time a creature hits them. Unlike Mu Yanling, which only draws you a single card regardless of how many creatures with flying hit your opponents, Gaunty exiles the top card of your opponent's library for each creature that hits them. This is a generically powerful card in any black deck, making it an excellent first pick. Without a doubt, one of the biggest bombs in red, if not the biggest, is also the only traditional planeswalker in the set, Chandra's Spark Hunter. Chandra synergizes the most with Boros, which loves the vehicles she makes, and Izzet, which appreciates that she can discard cards. But Gruul and Rakdos decks will also be happy to run her as a generically powerful game-ending threat. The other best card in red is Howl Squad Heavy, the latest iteration in the Goblin Rabblemaster design space. This is an excellent card in any red decks, but especially red aggro decks. Keep in mind that the way Howl Squad Heavy is worded, you can use the goblins you create at the beginning of your combat to crew a vehicle, making it so they aren't able to attack. This is a great way to get around the goblins must attack clause if attacking with your goblins would lead them to dying in combat for no profit. Green actually has several powerful bombs, but the best of them is Aganosaur Rex, a ridiculous 5-mana 8/8 with Trample. It also has Cycling, in case for some reason you'd rather not have a 5-mana 8/8 Trampler in your hand. Oh, but its Cycling mode is also a great card. For 3 mana, draw a card and put 2 +1/+1 counters on up to 1 target creature or vehicle. It gains Trample and Indestructible until end of turn. Wow. Another best green card for limited is Afterburner Expert, an excellent exhaust payoff in both Gruul and Simic decks. You'd probably run this in your Golgari decks as well, since you'll likely still have some exhaust cards in your deck, and it's a great card to mill over to reanimate itself later. In white, the 2 biggest bombs I see are Bulwark Ox and Spectacular Pileup. Bulwark Ox is an excellent aggressive mount that is easy to saddle. The Ox is great for growing your team over time and can even be sacrificed to protect your creatures from removal. Meanwhile, Spectacular Pileup laughs in the face of Bulwark Ox and its protection ability, sweeping the board for 5 mana even through indestructibility. Crucially, this is a sweeper that also destroys uncrewed vehicles and can be cycled away when it's not useful. Many of the gold cards are bombs as well, but they tend to be riskier to take early, because they lock you into a specific color pair. Still, Loot the Pathfinder is a card that's worth the risk, as it's extraordinarily powerful and is easy to splash in both Simic and Gruul decks, which gives you a bit of flexibility. On the other end of the spectrum, the Aether Spark is a stone-cold bomb in virtually any deck, making it by far the most flexible and therefore best first pick in the set. Since you're likely going to be building a deck with more than one color, it's vital that we discuss mana fixing. What options and strategies are out there? One of the better mana fixers is the Night Market, which is a festival that occurs between the 15th and 17th of winter. Various boats and merchants will appear at the docks on the beach. And oh wait, that's Stardew Valley. I've been playing a lot of Stardew Valley lately. Again. In Aetherdrift, the Night Market is a mana fixer, a tap land that can fix for any colored mana of your choice. Crucially, it also cycles for 3 colorless mana, giving it more utility if you draw it late and are flooding out. The enemy-colored Verge lands are powerful fixers if you're in those colors, but shouldn't be drafted over powerful on-color spells, even if you do happen to be drafting the color pair of the land. The Verges are good, but aren't so much better than the Gain lands to be worth taking over a premium uncommon or even a premium common. As usual, green decks are a little better at splashing for powerful bombs than non-green decks are, but even green is lacking in reliable early mana fixing this time around. The only bombs worth splashing for in this set are powerful late-game cards with minimal color requirements. Demonic Junker is so good it's worth putting in your deck even if you're not already in black. And the same can be said for Chandra Sparkhunter in red. If you've got access to either of these 2 cards, figure out how to get them in your limited deck if you can. As far as gold cards go, Loot and Explosive Getaway are worth trying to make work in your deck if you're already in all but one of their colors. I would also recommend going out of your way to try to splash Crypt Collar Chariot if you are drafting an Izzet deck. I would go so far as to draft Theractos and Dimir Gain lands in the first pack or 2 over mediocre on-color spells if you're drafting Izzet specifically, just in case you open or get past a Crypt Collar Chariot in a later pack. I hope very much that this video has been of some help to you, and I hope very much that you play in a pre-release or draft event at your local game store. Remember, if you don't have a local game store or they don't have the products that you're looking for, be sure to go to www.cardkingdom.com/TCC. Card Kingdom is not only an amazing part of the Magic the Gathering community, but they also have local brick and mortar stores in Seattle, Portland, and Arizona. The deals you'll find on their webpage may be just what you're looking for, and when you visit that webpage via our affiliate link, you'll be helping the channel out when you do. But of course, you cannot play in a pre-release or draft via my affiliate link, unless you're playing in a pre-release or draft at a Mox Boarding House, because again, Mox Boarding House is the brick and mortar stores that Card Kingdom runs, and they're really awesome. They're at Portland and in Seattle, and there's Arizona. I know Arizona isn't a city. I forget the name of the city. The city's right there. But even if it isn't at a Mox Boarding House, when you are buying everything from singles to accessories, from packs to deck boxes, when it is possible, when it is reasonable to do so, try and spend that money not on Amazon, not at Walmart, but at your local game store, because you're supporting your Magic community when you do.
next time on Shuffle Up and Play.
What's alchemy? These 3 Brawl Stars forced me to agree to a paper digital game of Brawl.
This might be my favorite card on Magic Arena. Oracle of the Alpha.
What the hell is going on here? Amy built me my own deck, and I've never been more afraid in my life.
Perforator Crocodile.
You get a stab wound, and you get a stab wound, and you get a stab wound.
I think it's this one.
I'm supposed to do it. I'm the computer.
All right.
I'm the computer.
Pursued whale.
Oh my gosh, it's the target audience of Secret Layers.
I told you not to blink
I
the
have
oracle.
to blink the Oracle.
Okay, you're gonna make me go get my Power 9. I'll be right back.